Hey, I'm just popping in real quick to talk about Sinners very quickly. My daughter and her teenage friend and we went to see this movie today at the matinee. I was a little hesitant at first. I wasn't sure if it was going to be too racy. I know they're 17, they're not babies, but still, as a parent, I don't know how comfortable I would be if the movie was too racy. And quite honestly, it had a couple of racy spots, and um, not oddly, but it was kind of hilarious. They uh, hid their faces a little bit when those scenes came around, and I don't know whether that was because I was sitting there or if they really felt uncomfortable with the scenes. So, anyway, so that's not a spoiler per se. That's just speaking about a couple of the scenes. The movie itself, again, very multi layered, whether we're talking about religious, spiritual, um, racial. Really, it seems like it's just a movie about life. That metaphysical aspect may hit a little harder for some who are not used to that as a theme in their own lives. Um, but there's the theme of twins. So twins represents dualism. So even biblically, excuse me, there were quite a few twins, Castor and Pollux. In mythology, there were a couple of set of twins. I can't remember their names right now. Also, we have learned in more recent years that supposedly from the biblical story, Jesus or Yeshua had a twin, or Thomas the twin, who was supposedly Jesus' twin. So, anyway, there's that theme of twins. We had Mary and Annie. There was a dualism there with maybe Mary was seen more or less as maybe a Mary Magdalene type, and maybe Annie was revered more as an indigenous mother type. And in fact, she was a mother who had lost her child. Oops, sorry. She was a mother in the movie. She was highly spiritual. We could tell from the scenes that we saw, even though we did not see her as a presence in the church, but she was a spiritual person. Um, we had the clan, and then we had the vampires. And so it almost seems like there was a dualism there with what the clan represents and what the vampires represents, and the symbolism shows that there is a correlation or there is a relationship there that could be seen if you look at it clearly, if you look at the similarities versus the dissimilarities, or compare and contrast the different things. Um, so it is a very thought provoking movie. It's supposed to be a horror movie. There were some parts that could make you jump. It made us jump. It was a tearjerker. There were several scenes where I know I was crying and my daughter was crying, very upset during those particular scenes, or touched, I would say. Maybe not upset, but touched by um, some of the scenes. But it is probably um, a movie that represents the dichotomies that exist in this world that we call real life. And is it really real? And then there's the head vampire, or at least he was the head vampire for this movie, and what happened to him at the end. Uh, Looks as though maybe he ascended. So if you ascend, then you probably had fallen, right? If you ascend, then maybe at some point you had to descend uh, into matter. Let's see what else. Human nature, of course, and who were the real sinners in the movie. It didn't necessarily have to be the people who were weary after a long day or of being oppressed in a Jim Crow era. Um, the lives that they led, um, the weariness that they likely had to endure, that in our current, present, modern era, we don't maybe understand that. I mean, we have things in our modern era too that people go through, but that was a whole different thing. So there's just so many facets to this movie, so many elements that are worthy of examination and should be examined and applied to not only our modernity, but also to recent history and not so recent history. So the themes are present, there are patterns in behavior, so patterns that we saw or we could pick apart from the movie have existed in the past. And those who are familiar with spirituality maybe, again, understood those things more so than people who really have no exposure or who have had no exposure to those things. I grew up at a time, I was a child watching movies called Creature Feature that came on like every Saturday. We had Saturday morning cartoons, and then we had like Creature Feature like 11 o'clock at night on Channel 20. I lived not too far outside of Washington, D.C., and I remember that I would watch Creature Feature every Saturday night before I went to bed. And I'm sure that wasn't a good thing. And I don't know why my mother let me watch those things, but they make impressions on you. So, um, at least for me, I think that I can have an impression that might be different from somebody that didn't grow up watching those sorts of things. And in fact, I forbid my own daughters to watch scary movies when they were little. It was not allowed. They could not watch scary movies. And also, even to the present, we do not watch scary or disturbing things before it's time to go to bed because they can leave an impression on us. If you know anything about psychology and how the mind works and how the emotions work and how we're able to absorb information. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents. So, go out and see it. I just recommended it to my mother, and everyone should go. Very thought provoking, and we should think about it because it's important. And it has a relevance, and that's why everybody's talking about it. All right, peace.